Today, schools across Florida will celebrate Dads Take Your Child to School Day. And right here at Gibbs High School, we have All-Pro Football Hall of Famer Coach Tony Dungy here to speak to us to honor this day.
I am so confident that if, and speak to those things that be not as though they were, but when we come together to support our students, schools, and communities, we can effect great change in the region, in the state, and quite frankly, in the country and this world.
We can point to racism, and we can use racism as an excuse, okay? Racism is there, and we can't control how other people look at you. But what you can control is how you respond, okay, and how you do things.
Hello, I am DeMaurice Lee, and we are here at Gibbs High School for the Dads Take Your Child to School Day and a day of dialogue where a discussion will be held about the impact of fathers and male role models on supporting the academic success of students. Let's start this segment by taking a look at an organization that was created to provide support to fathers and their involvement in their children's lives. All-Pro Dads Day provides an opportunity for dads to spend quality time with their children in an effort to strengthen the relationship as well as benefit their child's school and community. There are 41 All-Pro Dads Day chapters in Pinellas County. Throughout the state of Florida, there are 279 chapters. Lila Davis Elementary has the largest chapter in the district with 197 members. Let's take a look at an All-Pro Dads event held at Lake St. George Elementary here in the district.
All the dads work hard every day, and they don't get to be at school sometimes with their kids. So when you have these opportunities to come in and just be with your kids, you got to make it a big deal.
It absolutely blows my mind every time I come to these functions. So I'm very proud of this school and what we were able to do to get this off the ground.
As guests start to arrive, I had the opportunity to speak with Mark Merril, the founder and president of the Family First Foundation and co-founder of All-Pro Dads. Mark, how important is this day of dialogue and having Coach Dungy here to you?
Well, it's a really critical day, and we know that it's so important to have dads involved in the lives of their kids. We know one thing for certain, that kids do so much better in education if a dad or father figure is somehow involved in their lives. And so for Chancellor Lyons to bring us all together and all the superintendents together, Coach Dungy being here for this event at Gibbs High School, it's really, really excited to kick off and get dads more involved in their kids' lives, gets dads reading with their kids, and so it's just a really neat day.
So let's talk about Family First. Congratulations, you're celebrating your 25th year.
Yes.
Can you talk about Family First and just give us a little insight about the organization?
Sure. Family First is a national nonprofit organization. This is our 25th year, as you just mentioned, and really our ultimate goal is to strengthen families. We do that through 3 specific programs. One is called Family Minute, which is a little national radio feature that we do each weekday. The second is imom.com, where we have a lot of resources from mothers that they can get free of charge. And then, of course, All-Pro Dad, which is the program we're here with today, where we have a resource-rich website, but we also have monthly meetings in over 1,400 schools like this all across the nation. And it's a breakfast where dads get together with their kids, spend time together, eat together, go through some curriculum on how they can strengthen the relationships and other important character-building topics.
Why is there a focus on this conversation about African-American males and academic success? Why did you decide to go in that direction for this particular event?
Well, we know that in Pinellas County and, of course, school districts all across the nation, there really is that need. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot of young men who are growing up without their dads involved in their lives. And so this is an opportunity to raise awareness about that, get people starting to talk more about it, and then talk about the things we can specifically do to engage fathers in the lives of their children, to break that cycle of father absence and making sure that dads are involved in their kids' lives, or at least father figures or other family members are involved in those kids' lives as well, and teach them what it really means to be a man.
Before the event, we talked to some students, mentors, and dads. So I am here with Dominic Rosado, who is a senior at Northeast High School. Dominic, tell us, why is it important for you to be here today?
Being here today for me is just, we're all coming together. 5,000 role models is all just coming together for a greater purpose, you know, of mentoring, of brotherhood, of leadership, and just unity in general.
How important is the discussion of academic success when it comes to black and minority boys, you think?
It's extremely important because in this world today, education is definitely a necessity. It's just, you need to be educated. You need a college education these days, or a trade school, or something beyond high school, I feel like, to kind of make it these days. You need something greater.
So Quandell, how important is it for you to be here at the Day of Dialogue?
I mean, I feel like it's very important because this is a very important event. Tony Dungy, he's a Hall of Famer, so I feel like he's going to give us some words of wisdom, and I feel like this is a big event. I feel like it's very important because I feel like in school, like the teachers, they feel like the black men, like we're going to be failing and stuff like that. When I feel like at Gibbs High School, it's a lot of people that's like highly academic and they black. Like me, I have a 3.1 GPA and I'm going to school to be a lawyer and stuff like that, so I feel like it's very important.
And how many kids do you have with you this morning?
We brought about 25 boys down with us today.
And how important is this experience going to be for elementary school students, in your opinion?
I think it's very important so the kids can get knowledge from an older person, somebody who's went through these type of things, and I think they can get a good grasp on life from this.
Do you think there needs to be more opportunities and more exposure opportunities for students?
I definitely do, because the way that times are now, that we need more help with our young men to help them get through these hard times.
I think it's encourageable for them at their age to help them gain tools that they'll need as they get older, because you know things get a little harder as you go up in age. So a good mentor, someone talking to them, lead them the right way, should do a good service.
As a father, how important is it that you have been brought into this whole conversation this morning?
It do a lot because I teach him good things to do and teach him well at home. So by him seeing other men and trying to force him or teach him to go the right way instead of being in the streets and doing bad stuff, I think it helps me out a lot. So he'll know that I'm just not like browbeating him to be good. It's other people and other men like me that want young kids to do good, especially young men to do good in society.
National Football League Hall of Famer, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach, and national spokesman for All Pro Dads, Tony Dungy, is the guest speaker for today's Day of Dialogue. In collaboration with the Council on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, the Day of Dialogue allowed for an honest conversation with district superintendents, students, community members, parents, and school officials regarding the academic achievement of young black males.
Thank you. It is quite an honor for me to be here. I appreciate the invitation to come and address you today. Thank you so much to Dr. Grego for that invitation. And I'd like to say just a special thank you to your principal, Mr. Hepburn. It's awesome for me to be here and very special for me to be here at Gibbs High School because one of the people who had so much to do with me going to the Hall of Fame and so much to do with our success with the Bucs is one of your alums, Sean King. Also like to thank Chancellor Lyons. It was really his vision to bring this day to fruition. Dads, take your child to school day. He's wanted to see that happen across the entire state of Florida, and that's just awesome. He mentioned I work with an organization called All Pro Dad, and that's one of our big initiatives to get parents, but especially men, involved and get them out to the schools on a regular basis. But you may be wondering today why this is so important. Why are we here supporting a Dads and Kids at School Day? To really illustrate that point and why it's important, I want to take you back 40 years. Okay, it hurts me to say that, but that's when I was growing up. 40 years ago, I was sitting in the seats at Parkside High School, a little school in Jackson, Michigan, where I grew up. My hometown was a small industrial town just outside of Detroit. And in the late 60s and the early 70s, when I was young, the automobile industry was king in Detroit. Okay? And as a matter of fact, I had guys who went to school with me, my classmates, who dropped out of school as soon as they turned 18. If they turned 18 during their senior year of high school, they quit, and so they could go to work in the car factories. They worked for Ford and GM and Chrysler, and you could make very good money, and you could buy cars at a discount. And that's what a lot of boys in my neighborhood did, because that's what they saw. I was very, very fortunate, though. My dad talked to me about education. My dad was a teacher, and he said, if you want to do that, and you want to go to work for the auto industry, do that. But don't do it because everybody else is doing it. Don't do it just to make money. So you need to get your diploma, you need to go to college and keep your options open. Well, he said that, and keeping my options open didn't really register to me. Thinking about my future didn't mean a lot, because when I was a teenager, the future was about 6 hours. The future for me was what was going to happen that night, and that's about as far as I looked forward to. But my dad was a pretty wise guy, so he thought about another way to get the message across to me. He knew that I liked sports, and he knew I liked to play ball. So he and my mom said, first of all, no football without grades. And so that made an impression on me. But then the second thing he did, he started taking me to college football games. He took me to University of Michigan and Michigan State, and I'd see these big crowds and see the players out there, and I thought I could do that someday. But he said, in order to do that, number one, you have to go to college. You can't play college football without going to college, and you can't get to college without having good grades. So all of this made an impact. It made me think about what I wanted to do. So it wasn't so much keeping my options open, it was the fact that I had to get good grades to do the thing that I really liked, which was play ball. Well, I ended up playing and finishing high school and getting a scholarship to the University of Minnesota, and I played 4 years there, and I got my degree, and I was one of the fortunate few to go on to play in the National Football League. I played with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We won Super Bowl 13 in 1978. But like so many players, I didn't really understand how short your career could be. I actually played 3 years in the NFL and got traded a couple times, got released, and I was finally done playing at 25 years old. My sports career was over. And at that point, I was glad that I did take my dad's advice, and I kept my options open, and I had my degree because I could do some things now, and I ended up going into coaching. And that led me to my real career. You know, my short career was football, my long career was coaching, but because I kept my options open, I ended up having that opportunity and having a chance to do what I wanted to do. I ended up coming here to Tampa, coming to the Buccaneers, and eventually to the Indianapolis Colts. And 10 years ago with the Colts, we won Super Bowl 41. And that was a dream come true for me. We got a lot of benefits from that. One of the benefits was going to the White House and meeting the president. And I have to say that growing up as a kid, I dreamed about catching touchdown passes and winning Super Bowls and making money as a football player. Never really dreamed about meeting the president. But that happened after we won that Super Bowl 10 years ago. And President Bush, when I got to meet him and got to know him a little bit, he asked me to serve on his Council for Service and Civic Participation. So I got a chance to do that. And I got a chance to learn about some things that were going on in our country, and especially in our educational system. One of the things I learned was that some things hadn't changed a lot in the 30 years since I was in high school. Secretary of State then, Colin Powell, did a study for President Bush on the state of education in 2006. And he told us something that really, really surprised me. He said in our nation's largest cities, 48% of the high school students were not graduating. And that was almost half, and I couldn't believe that. Now, we've heard a lot about statistics in this area in our Pinellas County schools, our Hillsborough County schools, and some of the statistics aren't very good, but they're improving, they're getting better, and that's a credit to you guys, to our administrators, to our teachers. But I was very surprised then in 2006 to learn that the two school districts on the bottom of the list in terms of graduating students were Detroit, where I was from, and Indianapolis, where I was working at the time. And I thought that was a tragedy, and I thought I could do something about that. So it became a goal of mine to start talking to kids in my hometown area and in the city of Indianapolis where I was living, talk to them about finishing school and doing well and getting good grades, some of those things my dad talked to me about. I wanted to tell them that they needed to keep their options open, but I knew if they were anything like I was, just talking about options wouldn't really do it. I needed to have something that was going to really get their attention. And fortunately, Secretary of State Powell's report gave me that one thing that I needed, something that would get their attention. His report that he gave to us also said something about the results of those kids who dropped out of school. And he told us that kids who drop out of high school, this was 10 years ago, but kids who dropped out of high school would end up making on the average about $9,200 a year less than kids with their high school diploma. And if you look at that and you figure I'm going to work for 45 years and I'm making $9,000 a year less every year, that ends up being almost $500,000 in the course of your lifetime. And then he told us that college graduates make almost twice as much as high school graduates make. So that became my message to those elementary and middle school students in Michigan and Indiana that I talked to. I told them to dream and think about their future, to visualize getting that high school diploma, but think about it and visualize when you got that diploma, you were not only getting that piece of paper, but someone was giving you a check for $500,000. And that got their attention. Okay? Then I told them, visualize even more. Visualize going to college and getting that college degree and somebody giving you another check for $500,000. So make a choice. Think about this. When school seems like it's tough or it might not be what you want to do or you're not really thinking about your future, you can leave and drop out of school and you'll be okay, but you'll really be giving away $1 million. Think about it that way. And that did get their attention. That's what I say to the students, to the parents out here today. I want to say a word to you. I'm so excited you're here, so thankful that you're here, taking an interest in your children's education. I want to talk to the dads specifically who are here and let you know that we've got to find a way, you've got to find a way to get your child's attention. Let them know that school's important. Once you do that, and the next challenge is to help them see that reading is such a great way to do that. Reading is so important. My dad recognized that early on, and he encouraged me, and I thank him for that today. He did more than encourage me, though. He actually tricked me into reading. Okay? He knew how interested I was in sports and how that was just always on my mind. So he'd get the sports page and have me read it to him. And we'd talk about what was going on with the Detroit Tigers, the Detroit Lions, or the Michigan State football team. And he'd ask me questions about what I read. And I was having fun because I was looking at things that I enjoyed. But he was getting me to read and getting me to think about it and understand and process what I was reading. Then he did something really sneaky. He bought me a subscription to Sports Illustrated. And I can remember that magazine, it used to come out on Thursday. It would come in the mail on Thursday. I'd run home after school on Thursday to read my Sports Illustrated and find out what was going on. And in a way you could say, well, that was a little shallow. My dad was feeding into my sports desires, but he was getting me to read. Okay? I didn't even know it. Okay? But that reading and that practice, it helped me down the road. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to come up with creative ways to get your kids to read. And I would just suggest to the men, one of the best ways that we can do that is reading with your kids. And that's a challenge. don't always have that link like I had with my dad of sports, that you may be trying to find out what it is that your kids are really in tune to. But I can give you a suggestion. The organization I work with, All Pro Dad, has a great website, and if you go to allprodad.com/read, you'll get a lot of tips. You'll get some books that they suggest that you can read with your kids, tips on how to get them to read more. And believe me, if we do that, it'll pay off down the road. It will help your kids secure that future, keep their options open, and that's what this is all about. So I really appreciate being here today. I appreciate what our teachers here at Gibbs are doing, the administrators. Appreciate the students and the efforts you're making to make your school the best it can be. I just encourage you to keep that going. Make Gibbs great.
Coach Dungy takes a couple of questions from students in the audience, and one question hits to the core of the country's rough racial issues.
If racism isn't a factor in education, why are school suspensions and expulsions significantly disproportionate between white and black students?
You know, we can point to racism, and we can use racism as an excuse, okay? Racism is there, and we can't control how other people look at you. But what you can control is how you respond, okay, and how you do things. And I'll give you just some advice that I got from my dad, okay? And my dad grew up in a time, my dad enlisted in World War II so he could fight for our country, even though he knew when he came back there was going to be racism. He knew he wasn't going to be able to ride on certain buses. He knew he wasn't going to be able to teach in certain schools. But he said, you know what? I'm going to be the best that I can be, okay, and make sure that people can't use as an excuse that I don't know what I'm doing, okay, and they can't use as an excuse that I'm not qualified. Okay? So regardless of how they look at things, I'm going to be the best that I can be. And I think that's what we have to do. And there's always going to be negatives. There's always going to be a certain amount of racism. But don't look at everybody that way, because everybody's not like that. And don't use it as an excuse. We need to get ourselves ready and get ourselves where no one can take that from us. And I fought through that in coaching. You know, when I first got into the National Football League, there were no African-American head coaches. It was something that wasn't even thought of. Well, we showed people what we could do, and now it's not even a factor. So you can overcome racism in a lot of ways, and that would be my advice. That yes, there are suspensions, there are things that happen. Make sure we're not the reason. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's been a wonderful audience. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
I mean, it was inspiring, like, you know what I'm saying? You got to hear something a lot of people ain't gonna get a chance to hear.
The speech he gave us was like how he got his teammates to the next level, and like the position I am now, I'm a senior, so that motivation speech could take me to college and to the next level.
It was pretty inspiring, you know, all the things he said, especially with the school systems. The difference he's making is big, I feel like, and I appreciated what he did today. Came through talking to us.
And so what did you learn?
I learned just it's really no setbacks. It's setbacks, but you can't let it hold you down, and always just persevere through, basically, and always stay focused.
Well, I think the conversation was very valuable. He reached a lot of young people. A lot of young people needed to hear this information. There's been a lot of things going on within the city, and I think his message got across to a lot of youth today.
And so what do you think, what is the most important element of that message that you hope got across to students?
Never give up. That's the message I always want my students to understand and recognize, and I'm glad that Mr. Dungy was able to convey that, and I hope that he was able to convey that to the students, to never give up on any dreams and ambitions and to keep pushing forward through everything you go through.
So I imagine as a counselor here at Gibbs that you encounter students all the time, particularly boys who are in that position where they feel like they want to give up. What do you say to them?
I always try to work with them on their motivation. I'm good on intrinsic motivation, finding out what motivates you, and good at building that up. Because once you have that intrinsic motivation, what keeps you going, you can make it through anything. That's what drives you to that point when you're about to give up, you got that motivation, like this is what I want to do. This is the reason why I want to do it. So this is what's going to keep me going through it.
Now, let's go one-on-one with Coach Dungy.
I remember the impact my dad had on me, just to encourage me and motivate me to do well in school, and I wanted him to be proud of me, and it makes a difference. It really started when I was coaching with the Buccaneers, and with several of the coaches on our staff, and we were talking about how we put so much into our job, but we weren't doing as good a job as our dads had done, spending time with us, and how could we manage both and do a great job and get the Bucs going, but still be with our kids and our family. I think with dads, it's really just spending time and making sure you're there. I got an award a couple of years ago as a Father of the Year, and I wanted to give a nice speech and tell about what I'd really done for my kids. So I asked my son, who was about 12 or 13 at the time, I said, Eric, what's the most fun, or what's the biggest thing you remember us doing? And he said, well, it's when we played baseball with a piece of tape and a broom, and I beat you 22-3. And I'm thinking, gosh, this guy's been to the Super Bowl, he's been on the sidelines, he's held my court, he's been on TV, we've gone to all kinds of trips, and playing baseball with a roll of tape is I said, why was that so special? And he said, that was just having fun, and we got a chance to do it, and I knew that you were having some fun with me. And so that really let me know it doesn't have to be the big fantastic things, it doesn't have to be buying gifts, it's just spending that time and letting them know that you really enjoy being around them.
When we come back, we will continue to give you more insight on the day's events, which include a community roundtable.